most gaps do not announce themselves. They do not arrive with sirens or warning signs. They appear quietly during ordinary moments while life seems to be moving as it always has. And by the time we recognize them, we are already standing on one side, wondering how we got there. I know this because as a teenager, one evening during an ordinary secondary school night, I was walking back to my hostel from prep. Suddenly, the world changed. It was as though a curtain dropped between my eyes and everything else. The path I had walked countless times blurred into confusion. I stopped, waiting for my vision to correct itself, but it did not. That moment was the beginning of a gap I could not describe. Because before then, life was structured and familiar. School worked the way it was designed to work. Reading meant seeing, movement meant looking ahead, independence meant functioning without any explanation. I belonged easily, but when my sight began to fail, none of that structure shifted with me. Therefore, I became stagnant because there was no idea on how education would be accessed, how information would be accessed, and overall, how I can grow inside a system that suddenly no longer fits. This stagnancy created a huge gap. School did not officially end, but for me, it paused. It paused because textbooks became inaccessible. Classroom assumed sameness, examination assumed vision. While the system continued at its usual speed, I stood still, watching life move forward without me. And this is how gaps are created. Not always through cruelty, often through continuity. Systems keep moving even when people cannot. For a long time, my life became an exercise in waiting. I was waiting for treatment. I was waiting for improvement, waiting for something to return me to where I had been. But waiting did not close this gap. What began to close the gap was the appearance of the first external bridge, rehabilitation, not as a miracle, but as redesign. Braille did not give me back my sight, but it gave me access to information. Mobility training did not remove the obstacles on the road, but it gave me the skills to navigate them. Technology did not erase barriers, but it changed how I interact with the world. And community reframed what participation could look like. These are external bridges. They exist because some people decided that the system should bend instead of break people. And this decision mattered because for the first time since losing my sight, progress became structurally possible. But possibility is not movement. Once the external bridge was built, something else was required of me. I had to cross it. This was the internal bridge. Crossing meant struggling through frustration. It meant learning skills that felt foreign. It meant accepting that life would not go back to its old form and choosing to build competence in a new one. Society can provide access, but I had to provide commitment. So after my rehabilitation, I resumed schooling. It wasn't smooth, but steadily. And at that time, I began to see gaps like the one I experienced everywhere. Some like mine were created by disability, some by poverty, some by conflict or rigid systems. Different causes, but same outcome. People are separated from participation not because they are incapable, but because systems fail to adapt when life changes. Through my work today, I see both sides of gaps. I see structures that fail to adapt, and I also see individuals who have lost the courage to move. But building bridges requires both sides to act. Internally, bridges are built when people accept their reality, when they become at peace with who they are, when they choose agency, when they take ownership of learning, adaptation, and participation, even in imperfect conditions. Externally, bridges are built when systems become elastic, when education adapts, when workplaces value output over conformity, when policies include lived realities. I did not create the gap caused by the loss of my sight, but I had to decide whether I will remain defined by it. I had to ask for access and prepare to use it. I had to demand inclusion and be ready to contribute. I have to accept support and still move with responsibility. This balance is where progress truly happens. Building bridges is not a single action, it is a shared process. When either side withdraws, the gap remains. But when both engage, the gap becomes a passage. I stand here today not because the gaps in my life disappeared. No. I'm here today because bridges, internally and externally, were built deliberately. And that brings me to what is before us today. Bridging gaps. It is not a comfortable process. It comes with tax. It comes with effort and cost. On one hand, there is you who are serious about building bridges. You must understand that you need to learn, adapt, and persist. And on the other hand, you who are positioned to facilitate building bridges must understand that it is not a favor. It is not generosity. It is a right, a fundamental requirement for full participation in society. People do not ask for bridges because they want special treatment. They ask for them because without them, participation becomes impossible. These gaps are not somewhere else. They are here with us. They are abstract and they are physical. And they must be bridged, not only because there are individuals who are ready to cross, but because a society that leaves people behind can never be whole. Inclusion is not complete until everyone can participate meaningfully. That is why this work matters. You and I all have a role to play. And I have a question for everybody that is listening to me. What are you doing to bridge these existing gaps? At home, at workplace, and in everyday life, what is it that you are doing? I really need an answer to this question, even though I am not saying that you will give me these answers here. But we need to answer them because we need to bridge these gaps through collective efforts. Not only because Saratu needs a bridge, but because we all need them. I believe that we all know this saying, Hana wani hana kai. So if you refrain from building a needed bridge because you think you do not need it today, you may need it tomorrow.